Night Crier.
The sky is panicking, the earth is panicking, there is a night-crying man in my house.
Passers-by read it, and slept until dawn.
I'm sure you've all heard of it, and the story I'm going to tell you next is about the night crier.
It happened during the spring festival this year.
According to our customs, on the second day of the Lunar New Year,
I had to go to my relative's house for a reunion dinner. And I also went to my uncle's house early in the morning with a large bag of gifts.
And when I arrived at my uncle's house, I saw my unlucky cousin fishing in the small pond at the door of my house.
And when he saw me coming,
he shouted loudly at home, "Dad, my cousin is here, get more meat and wine.
And if I don't drink my cousin today, we won't sleep." As he spoke, he put away the fishing rod and walked towards the house.
I thought to myself, hey, this kid really treats me as his own brother.
And he didn't stop until he was going to vomit me. At this time,
my uncle also went out to pick me up. "Oh, haha, Wang Erwa, you can come."
"Why are you still carrying so many things? What are we polite about?" my uncle said while taking the things in my hand and walked to the house.
I thought, yes, if you really feel polite, then take the initiative to take something.
Take it and run to the house. At lunchtime, I had dinner and drank with my uncle and his family. And when it was almost 3 o'clock,
my mobile phone rang, and the caller came from one of my small rats.
"Wang Erwa, I heard that you are back in the village. You don't come back to sit and play with your brother for a while. The relationship is to live a good life and forget our brothers before."
"Don't say anything, you come here now, our brothers are waiting for you here.
Get together and win over the feelings." After listening to this, I reluctantly agreed. After all, they are all brothers who grew up in a village wearing a pair of pants. So I told my uncle to leave the door at night and set off for the mouse's house.
The rat was not far from my uncle's house,
and it took less than 20 minutes to walk, and when I arrived, I saw that my brothers were ready to dry the food and drinks. When my brothers saw me arrive, they hurriedly took me to the table. I looked at a few bottles of liquor on the table, and felt that this new year was not as easy as going to work.
Alas, yes, I can only continue to drink, so the brothers are drinking and bragging.
And suddenly the mouse said something that caught my attention.
He said, "Erwa, don't you know, there is an extra widow in our village.
It is the Lee family not far ahead.
Her husband and children were in a car accident 3 months ago."
As soon as I heard it, I really didn't know about it. This widow Lee's family had a good life before, and they were honest. So I didn't expect this to happen, alas.
I asked,
"Mouse, what do you mean by this? This widow Lee's family is quite honest and not bad." At this time, the iron egg next to him said, "You don't know about Erwa.
Since this widow Lee's husband and children left, she has been crazy. Chattering all day long, running around during the day to ask if anyone has seen her children and husband.
And sticking handwritten advertisements on the wall everywhere. And at night, she locked herself in a room and said to herself alone, 'My son, why don't you eat? Don't be hungry. Why don't you wear thicker clothes on this cold day? Don't freeze.'"
While talking with a crying tone, some passers-by heard it and couldn't help but pity this widow Lee. Not to mention the loss of her husband at a young age, even the child is gone. The village has discussed, after the new year, I will help this widow Lee Jiang Luo's personal family. After all, it is too pitiful for a woman to live a lifetime. I heard that this was also a sour place in my heart. This person's life is like this.
Whether you are a good person or a bad person, you can't escape the impermanence of destiny. My brothers drank until almost 7 o'clock, and then they started to play cards again. And it was almost 12 o'clock, I glanced at the time and said,
"Brothers, let's get here today, my uncle's family still keeps the door for me to go back. It's too late, it's not good, let's get together tomorrow."
When they heard this, they felt that it was almost time, so they went back to their homes to rest. When I was about to leave, the mouse got up and called me.
"Erwa, if you hear something when you pass by Widow Lee's house, don't care, don't feel pitiful and want to see, hurry back to sleep. After this time, this Widow Lee is becoming more and more abnormal at night.
I nodded and walked away.
On the way back, I thought about going back to sleep quickly,
shivering from the cold at night. When I arrived in front of Widow Lee's door,
I heard a baby's cry coming from Widow Lee's room. The sound was very real.
And in order to make sure that I was not having auditory hallucinations, I took out my mobile phone to record the sound. At this time, I wondered, isn't this Widow Lee's child gone? Why is there still a child's cry in her house?
Did she go crazy and steal other children?
Driven by curiosity, I had long forgotten my brother's warning. So I slowly approached the door of Widow Lee's house. And when I got closer, I saw a piece of paper pasted on the door. And I read it in a whisper, "The sky is panicked, the earth is panicked.
There is a night crying man in my house, passing by pedestrians read it again."
And I slept until dawn. Ow. Saw that Widow Lee was holding a piece of wood in her arms. And the wood was still wrapped in a quilt, and Widow Lee was coaxing the wood like a child. And the cry came from the wood in Widow Lee's hand. My head buzzed instantly.
And I almost didn't plant it there. I wanted to run but found that my legs were weak and I had no strength at all.
And at this time Widow Lee slowly raised her head. Her eyes glared in the direction I was looking at.
And the two pairs of eyes were so staring at each other. I was so frightened that I ran towards my uncle's house with a wow. After running for a few minutes, I arrived at my uncle's house. I kicked open the door and sat on the ground. My uncle heard this movement and thought it was a thief in the house.
So he and his cousin rushed over with a stick. But when he saw that it was me, my uncle scolded and said, "You little rabbit cub, do you think your uncle and my life is too long, right? You have to be scared to death to be willing?" I gasped for breath for 5.6 minutes before I came to my senses. And then I told my uncle what I had just seen, and when he heard it, he said, "You are drinking and drinking, why can there be a child crying in Widow Lee's house? And the wood comes out, your imagination can write a novel." Seeing that my uncle didn't believe me, I said, "I also recorded the sound of a child crying." And as I said, I played the recording, but there was nothing in the recording. It was empty. Now my uncle was even more sure that I had drunk too much. So he asked me to take a shower and go to bed quickly, and I was powerless to refute. And at the same time I felt even more incredible. The sound I heard was very clear, and it was recorded at the time. Why would it be gone? After taking a shower and going to bed, I repeatedly thought about what I had just seen. Did I really drink too much? I pondered it repeatedly until 3 a.m. before falling asleep in a daze. This sleep I was uncomfortable, headache can't work. Always feel a stone pressed on my chest, breathless until noon. When my uncle called me to eat, found that my face was pale. And a touch of the forehead is like sleeping in the refrigerator all night. So I called my cousin to bring a bowl of water, 3 chopsticks and a kitchen knife. In a daze, from time to time I heard my uncle seems to be begging someone. And like scolding someone, and finally I heard a crisp sound of falling bowls. Instantly I felt a lot more sober, my body is not so uncomfortable, and my head does not hurt so much. Afterwards, my uncle tied me with a red cloth and told me to rest for 2 days. And then he went out. When I got better, I asked my cousin what he was doing, but my cousin didn't know. But since then, all the trees around Widow Lee's house have been tied with red cloth. Greater than. It is said that this is for the peace of mind of Widow Lee's child, and don't come back. Please comment and let me know if you heard similar experience from someone else.